Okay, perfect. All right, guys, thank you for waiting. So again, my name is Tanya Faridai. I am the STEM career counselor, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about interviewing. All right, so basically we'll go over a little bit of career services and the services that we're going to be offering. We'll talk about preparing for a resume. We'll also talk about the execution and what to do when you follow up. So just a quick overview of services. So we are still holding, we're still having appointments as well as live chats and drop-ins, and those drop-ins will be through our virtual chats platform. For appointments, you're actually still able to log into Cougar Pathway. Just make sure that you select either phone or virtual for your location in order to have those appointments with your career counselor. We'll still be having workshops just like this, and also career fairs and employer meet and greets are currently being rescheduled. So please make sure that you follow us on social media so that you can always have that information available to you, and you can get those updates. So the resources, so we still, host, we still have resume reviews where you can email your counselor or you can give us your resume through virtual chats. However, you can also use VMOCK to get resume review, kind of gives you like a score, lets you know if you have a pretty good resume, like a good starting resume. Again, we also have virtual chats, and those are available from 9 to 5, Monday through Thursday, and usually 10 to 15 minutes of, instead of a video call, it's usually virtual chat, so you're just chatting, sharing information. One second. There we go. And then we also have our Coog Career Workbook that's available on UCS, on uh.edu/UCS, and I'll share that with you guys a little bit later on. But we do have that workbook that can kind of walk you through how to do resumes, cover letters, and all of those things while we virtually. We also have vocational assessments. We have the MBTI, Strengths Quest, and the Strong Inventory. Those do cost $15. And we have our Focus 2, which is available to U of H students for free. And then we also have our career closet where you can rent a suit for 10 days for up to 3 days. And yeah, you just come in, rent a suit, and then bring it back within 3 days, all for $10. All right, so again, through Cougar Pathway, this is where you're gonna be able to apply for jobs, whether on campus, off campus, work study, non-work study. We also have internships and full-time opportunities, entry level all the way to like 5 to 10 years of experience. You can upload your resume there. You do need an approved resume in order for you to apply to any of the positions. So it's always good to make sure that you talk to one of the career counselors about making sure that your resume is competitive amongst the other resumes as well. We also do cover letter reviews on there as well. You can RSVP to UCS events, including virtual chats, and you can actually get an update. You can get a schedule of the events that we have coming up, including other workshops. And then there you can also schedule your one-on-one virtual or phone appointment with the career counselor. Just make sure to put phone or virtual in the location section. All right, so let's get started. So interviews happen in several types of formats. So, we use technology a lot nowadays. Usually the first interview that you're going to have with any given employer is usually a phone screen. And so there's just like a quick, tell me about yourself. And then they kind of let you know like next steps and different things like that. They also host Skype and video interviews. So that can look like Skype. They can also use Zoom, which is this platform that we have, and also Google Hangouts. There's also outside of the office interviews. So interviews that can look like a lunch or a dinner with a potential employer. And we also actually host like an etiquette workshop so that you guys can kind of see what it is that you need to do to conduct yourself during these interviews, because dinner and lunch interviews definitely happen. And there's also in-person interviews where it's either a group where you're interviewing and it's you and all the other candidates, or a panel interview where it's you, yourself, and then there's, maybe 2 to 4 people that's interviewing with you. And then obviously the traditional one-on-one interview where it's you and the hiring manager or you and the recruiter. And those are kind of the formats in which interviews exist. I forgot to say, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and input those into the chat. And then once I finish, I can go ahead and come back to the screen, I can read some of those questions. And yeah. All right. So when you're going on an interview, one of the most important things that you need to do is make sure that you prepare, right? So you need to bring extra resumes and a pad folio. It just looks nice. It gives you that professional presentation, just in case, and it shows that you're always prepared without you necessarily having to say that you're always prepared. Bring a notebook and a pen and pencil, right? Jot down some notes if you get some insightful information, or if they ask you something and you're, maybe not sure, maybe you want to jot that down for like future references, just so you can kind of remember that. And then also bring some water, because you're going to be doing a lot of talking, and depending on the format of the interviews, some of these companies have like 4-hour interviews where you're meeting back to back with different people that work on the team. So it's always good to have some water with you. Make sure that you're in professional attire. On interview days, you're most likely going to be anxious about a lot of things, right? Traffic, am I going to know what to say, and all these different things. The last thing that you want to be focused on is the way that you're presenting yourself. So just always dress in a professional manner. And then always make sure that you kind of visit the site before, so that you know the location, where to park. Is there any construction or something like that that could potentially make you late? These are some of the things that you just kind of want to make sure that you know and are prepared for on the day before the day of your interview, in order to be successful and stand out. All right, so part of preparing is also knowing yourself, right? So first of all, you have to know what's on your resume. You should be having a different resume for each type of position, and highlighting different things as it relates to the position that you're applying to, because again, your resume is consistently changing, consistently shifting. So you need to know what's on your actual resume, or what's on this version of your resume. What makes you stand out from other people? And then also, what are you passionate about? So that way you can talk about that, because those questions are going to come up, and you want to be prepared for that. Make sure that you know your organization, right? The organization, right? What will be the job, or what is the program? And then what's the bottom line, right? Are they like sales? Are they, very focused on diversity? All these different things. Make sure that you're also highlighting yourself to be the perfect candidate by doing research on the organization itself. And then know the job description. It's very, very, very important. Understand the job that you're applying for. What is it that they're looking for? And ask questions as you research. We talk about informational interviewing, where you actually, before your interview, will go on like with some people who might work in similar positions. That way you are prepared to and you know the job description. One of the worst things that could potentially happen is you interviewing for a position that, or asking them what position you're interviewing, or them asking you if you know what position you're interviewing for, based on the things that you're choosing to highlight. So make sure that you do that research. Make sure you know yourself, know the organization, and also study the job description, and make sure that you know what it is that you're applying for. So included in that know yourself piece, right? What makes you unique? Kind of reflect on your story, right? As it relates to your academic and professional life. Spend some time kind of reflecting, right, about your career choices, and that way they have a good idea of like the things that you value within your work life. They kind of know your aspirations and what you're passionate about, and what direction you want to take your career in. Also, you always want to highlight your strengths, and what you truly care about. When you're talking about a job and something that you would like to do, that looks a lot different than when you're talking about something that you're very passionate about. And so you always want to make sure that you can, again, know yourself, so that you can be authentic, and that passion can come through without you having to say, I'm very passionate about this specific thing. And then also you want to talk about what you're currently working on as well. So in this knowing yourself, what you're currently working on, and all these different things don't necessarily just have to stem from past experiences, because maybe you've never had a job before, maybe you've never had an internship before, right? So you kind of want to think about, what are some of the accomplishments that you've done, some of the things that you're best at, some of the things that really challenged you. And those things can be from like work experiences, they can be from team projects, they can be from classes, any kind of committees or student organizations that you're in, any associations that you've joined, any research that you've done, volunteering, as well as internships. That's where all of those different areas, those are the things that you can kind of draw in to kind of get to know yourself. That way you can convey all of your experiences to your employer. So I'm going to take a quick break just to see if there are any questions, because I can see that there's some chat stuff in here. Give me 1 second. All right, let's see. Okay. Okay. All right. And so I see someone has a question here, and I'm going to come right back to that because it's definitely a good question. I'm going to go back and share my screen with you guys. All right. So on top of learning about knowing yourself, you also need to learn your employer. That's very important, right? You want to study the job description and understand what they need. You want to compare what the employer is seeking to your qualifications side by side, kind of like a running checklist, right? And then you can start kind of identifying gaps and seeing what do I need to do in order to make myself the standout candidate, or how, you know, can I leverage like maybe a class that I've taken, even if I don't have experience in those things. So kind of when you do that checklist and you do that side by side where you're looking at the job description and what you're good at and what you've done so far, it makes it a lot easier for you to speak to sound like the perfect candidate. You also want to use tools like VMOCK, Career Search, Glassdoor, the Riley Guide to kind of get an overview of, again, of that company and then kind of what that industry, you know, looks and feels like. Also make sure that you visit the organization's website. There you're going to find the mission statement. You're going to find what kind of products and services, what's their client base, what type of projects are they currently doing, any press releases. Just because, you know, yes, you're looking for an opportunity, but you also want to make sure that it kind of aligns to some of the things that you also like to do. You know, are they doing any like volunteer work? Is it the same place that maybe you volunteered and you're able to kind of talk a little bit more about that experience? And again, make yourself like sound like, make yourself, you know, the ideal candidate for this position. Again, it helps you, and also helps you get perspective, right? If you review kind of like the trade and business publications, or you hear reviews from, you know, past or current employers, it'll give you a glimpse of like what's to come in that industry and what you can expect as an employee for that company as well. All right, so back to that dress for success piece, right? So things like suits, are very important. Long sleeve, black, gray, or navy. Ties and shirts and ties, make sure it's a white or light colored shirt or blouse. Is not the time to, you know, start venturing on and, you know, trying out new fashion things. Again, because you don't want to be nervous about your appearance because you're going to be nervous amongst other things already. You want to make sure that your pants aren't too tight or baggy, and then your shoes should be neutral flats or pumps that are like 1 to 2 inches. And then any polished leather shoe. Also an accessory, again, like a professional bag, one of those pad folios or portfolios so that you can put your resume in there, just in case you have to give them an extra one. You are that prepared candidate who can say, oh, no, it's okay, I got it. You don't have to go print more, I brought extras. Or maybe in that time you've been doing informational interviewing with people who've worked in that industry or something like that. You might have left out something on your initial resume that you decide that you want to add on right before you have your interview, again, to be that stronger candidate. This would be the perfect time to say, oh, I see you guys have my resume. I have an updated one for you, and you're able to kind of give that out to them as well. So yes, your verbals are very important, what you're saying, but you also want to be very, very mindful of your nonverbal communication. Your nonverbal communication can be something as simple as like a hard or a weak handshake. That can already be a little weird. Any facial expressions is something that I'm trying to not do because I talk with my eyes a lot and I talk with my hands. But yeah, you want to just kind of look at your facial expressions, especially nervous facial expressions. Slouching in a chair can show that maybe you're not that interested, right? So you want to make sure that you're sitting upright. Playing with items, right? If you're someone who gets nervous and plays with items, be mindful of something like that. Again, hand gestures if you're a hand talker. And then also not maintaining eye contact can be a little bit difficult to convey like honesty and trustworthiness when you're not necessarily maintaining eye contact with people. And then also make sure that you're communicate by listening and speaking, right? So on top of you being, you know, answering questions in a, you know, a way that's amazing, you also want to make sure that you're listening. That way you're answering the questions that they're actually asking. And it is okay to smile, okay? You're excited about this interview. That smile itself is going to let them know that they're excited without you necessarily having to say it. So smile. So some common interview questions, right? The dreaded tell me about yourself, okay? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What motivated you to apply? What are your short-term and long-term goals? Why do you believe you'd be a good fit for this organization? Tell me about a time. And I'm going to get more into all of those because there's a lot of tell me about your time questions. That's what we call behavioral questions. But if you've done your homework and you've prepared, which means that you know yourself and you know the company, the first 5 questions should be something that you're able to get through. You would know where to start, what you need to highlight about yourself, areas where you might have gaps in maybe experience or something like that. You know your short-term and long-term goals as it relates to this specific company. And then also you would know why you're a great fit, which is why we definitely encourage you to do that self-reflection of you and then do that research of the company so you're able to answer those questions a lot better. So now number 6, tell me about a time you worked on a team, you achieved the goal. What was the role? What was the outcome? Those questions, again, are what we call behavioral questions. And so, or situational questions as well. So during this time, they'll typically ask you, you have to think about a time where you encountered like a difficulty or you learned a lesson, where you accomplished a task or experienced a great result or played like a leadership role in a situation. Again, those situations, if you've never worked before, if you've never interned before, they can come from any previous jobs that you've had, any volunteer events that you've done, maybe projects or assignments, any extracurricular activities, as well as any leadership experience. So if you're in like a student organization and maybe you are, the membership committee chair, that is leadership. So when we answer those questions, we use what's called the STAR method. And I will show you, I actually have a worksheet that I can share with you guys at the end of this, that helps you that helps you create your STAR method answer. But basically what that looks like is you think of a situation, right? What were you doing at the time? The task, right? What was the task? What needed to be done? What was the assignment? The action is what did you do? What actions did you take, right? And then also you always want to end it with the result so that they know whether it was successful, whether it wasn't successful, but you learned some things and different things like that, because it's also very important when you're trying to highlight the type of candidate that you are and the type of worker that you are. So an example of that can look like, all right, like this, right? The situation, right? During my 3rd year of college, I was elected vice president for professional programs for student association. The duties of the position included securing speakers for our meetings, advertising the programs to the campus community, introducing speakers, and evaluating each program. Just give them like a brief outline of what was happening during that time, right? The task was previous attendance at the meetings had decreased substantially due to a decrease in overall student population. The goal was to implement programs to address the professional development of our association and increase attendance, right? Now you're letting them know the specific task. When it goes into action, they need to know what is it that you're bringing, what's the skill set, right? So I assembled a team to help with the program design and speaker selection. So you, by, again, choice of words, assembled already communicates that you're a leader, right? I developed a survey to determine members' professional interests and ideas for possible speakers and topics. My team and I, now you're showing that collaboration piece, right? Had each member complete the survey. Then we randomly selected members for a focus group interview. I learned this research technique in my marketing class, again, highlighting why you're an asset for the position while you're still talking about your experience already. And thought it would identify why attendance had dropped. And then you go into the result, because after you've highlighted all of these things, it's always important to highlight that result. So for this scenario, because of the information we gathered from the surveys and interviews, we selected speakers for the entire year. Produced a brochure describing each program and the featured speaker. Under my leadership, attendance increased by 150% over the previous year. Again, you being able to to tell me your results can show me that you're data driven. It tells me about your leadership, and then also about the impact that you've had while you're still getting, again, to highlight some of the other areas that I might not necessarily have thought about that I wanted in this specific position. But again, you highlighting that and letting me know that you took a marketing class and different things like that, again, has that impact and makes you stand out. All right, so typically when we do this, I usually have students come up and share. And so for today, we're gonna do that a little bit differently. So I'm gonna go through the questions, and I'm just gonna give you guys some quick tips on how to answer those types of questions, things that you can say and things that you should avoid saying. So tell me about yourself, right? The most common question, usually the very first question that you're asked. You always want to leave out things like your age, your nationality, marital status, your personal interest and hobby. If they don't relate to the profession, to your professional identity, then they should, you should leave those out. Information about other people, so that can be any like previous managers that you've had, any like professor or anything like that, because the question again is tell me about yourself. And then you want to avoid negative statements about people or experiences. When you are answering, tell me about yourself. You're talking about who you are, what brought you to this specific position, and what is it that's going to make you a good candidate, right? Those experiences that are going to make you a good candidate. And then again, I need to stay away from anything that is not relevant to the job itself. Tell me about a time you solved a problem. This is, again, anytime you hear tell me about yourself, go into STAR mode, right? What was the situation, task, action, and what was the result of that? So answering that, you always want to keep it positive. Again, it's not time to talk about, like a problem person. This might require you to reframe some things. And then also, again, always end it with a solution. And remember STAR method, STAR mode. Tell me about yourself means you're answering in STAR mode. What is your biggest strength and area of growth? So when you're answering that question, again, you always want to stay positive. This is not time to bash yourself and talk about the gaps that you have or the experience that you don't have. This is time, remain positive in that, right? You always discuss your strength, and then also describe what you're working on as it refers to your weakness. Sometimes that question can be asked as what is your strength or what is your weakness? Anytime that I hear the word weakness, I always think to call it an area of growth, because that sounds like something that I'm aware of and that I'm currently working on, rather than a weakness, which could potentially mean that it's a liability. If I tell you that my weakness is time management, you might be like, this person might be late. If I tell you that an area of growth for myself is time management, however, I have these calendars and these systems set up to ensure this, it sounds less like a liability and more like something that I'm working on and that I have under control. And then always provide examples. That way they know exactly what it is that you always provide examples for this specific thing. All right, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? So in this question, they want to see if you have an idea of kind of where you're heading, how this aligns to your professional goals, right? Is this a job that you're going to have and maybe leave, or is this somewhere that you're wanting to grow in, right? And also kind of want to know your interest in the specific field also. So you always want to be realistic and humble, because if you come in and you say, oh, I want to be the CEO, the hiring manager might be like, well, in 5 years, I've been here 10 years. So, so you always want to make sure that you're being realistic and you're also being humble as you answer that question. And if you know the company, then you might know like maybe what other positions that they have available or some other work that you might be interested in pursuing, and you're actually able to put that in there. That way they see that you are dedicated to, this position and this company, and they're probably more likely to hire you. Your greatest accomplishments. Again, you always want to use the STAR method when you're talking about your greatest accomplishment, right? What was the situation? What was the task at hand? What was your action in that? And then as a result, and what was the result of that? What made it like your greatest accomplishment? Okay. And at the end of interviews, typically they always ask, do you have any questions for us? You always want to make sure that you ask questions during this time to, again, show that you're interested and that you're also wanting to learn, but also for yourself too. That way you know information, right? So some examples that you can ask is, what qualities do you look for in an applicant joining your team? Again, if you have an additional interview coming on after this, you're able to go back into your resume, or you're able to kind of look at yourself and say, okay, during this interview, did I talk about these specific skills? If I have not, when I go to my next interview, if I'm invited to my next interviews, I need to make sure that I highlight this to consistently make myself the strongest candidate. And then also, what does a typical day look like? When you apply to these positions, that's something that for yourself, you should know, does it look like you're in the office all day? Are you out on the field all day, in the field all day? Are you able to work remotely? Again, asking what does a typical day look like is a very good question so that you can prepare yourself for the opportunity. What do you enjoy about working for the organization? This is something that you can't Google. And this allows the person that's interviewing you to kind of talk a little bit more about the organization from their standpoint, and you're also giving them an opportunity to talk about themselves. And again, that's where your nonverbals would come in, and you pay attention, and you would give them eye contact, let them know that you're very interested in what it is that they're saying. I always want to ask, what is the next step in the hiring process? That way you're not necessarily surprised, and you kind of know exactly what's coming up next. Asking about the culture is also important. Any opportunities for advancement or professional development is also a good question. What are the performance expectations over 12 months? What is the biggest challenge someone might face in this position? Again, to show that interest, but also for your information, that way you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And then you're more than welcome to ask anything that you genuinely want to know within reason, as it relates to the company. But again, if you do your research, you should be able to have questions that you can ask them, maybe about even specific projects if they've made them public or anything like that, to show that, again, that you're passionate about this specific company. Again, always ask about next steps. Very important to ask about next steps so you know what to expect. Always ask for contact information so that you can send a thank you email. While recruiters or hiring managers aren't going to be like, oh, we can't hire this person, they didn't thank me for my time, it's always another opportunity to show your interest, right? To show your interest in the specific position. And then also, just like that last little bit of, just that last impression, because you might not be the first, second, you might not be the last person that they interviewed, and they've interviewed a couple people throughout the day. And so this, again, gives you that opportunity to kind of peek back in and say, hey, don't forget about me. So thank you emails don't have to be anything long where you're going back and saying, oh, I remember this question, I have an answer now, or anything like that. You're just thanking them for their time, and that you're looking forward to the next steps, and then not to hesitate contacting you if they have any questions. And here's another one. Again, I hope you're having a great week. I had my interview with you about this specific position. I'm excited about it. You mentioned your team would be finalizing your decision, right? Just simple, basic things. There's a lot of templates available also on various websites. Always make it yourself, make it something that you're comfortable with. There's really no right or wrong way to thank someone for their time. Okay, and so resources that we provide to students. So again, we do have that VMOCK, and I'm going to be coming back in to look at chat and answer some questions for you guys. But I'm going to share some of these resources, and then we'll go right back into that. So again, we have VMOCK, which is like a free resume review. Gives you a score of your resume, kind of lets you know if you have a good starting resume, but you always want to make sure that your resume is always changing when you're applying to different positions, because they're going to require different skills. And it's available 24/7. We also have our Coog Careers workbook available on our website, where you can get resume and cover letter templates. There's some sample interview questions as well, and there's and there's a career action plan and plenty of other things. So if you're just going to graduate school, if you need help with salary negotiations, all of those things are also available in that workbook, and it's all free to you guys. So we have our drop-in hours, which are live chat hours now, and usually 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't require an appointment. You just go to uh.edu/UCS, and from 9 to noon, and then 1 to 5 on Monday and Tuesday, and then 9 to noon and 1 to 4 on Wednesday and Thursday, and you can chat with the counselor. You're also able to schedule your appointments with the career counselor as well. Okay, so for events coming up, so they have been rescheduled. Our workshops are still happening. They're just going to be on a virtual platform, so please make sure that you guys continue looking up, going on our social media, and that way you guys can get the latest updates. And they're also available on Cougar Pathway as well. So you guys are able to see what we have coming up there also. And our liberal arts career fair has actually been rescheduled to May 20th. And so again, if anything changes during that time, we'll go ahead and update you. That's why we definitely encourage y'all to use social media. And yeah, connect with us at Coog Careers on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, if you haven't already. And if you are, thank you guys so much. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and come back into the chat so I can see questions. All right. So someone said, if you've applied to multiple positions at the company and you receive an interview invitation, but aren't specifically told what position it's for, how would you suggest approaching the position? It's actually a very good question. And so, do you mind, are they positions within like the same job family? Do you happen to know that? And you can either respond via like unmuting yourself and just unmuting yourself and answering that, or you can write it in the chat. Okay, while I wait, I'll answer that to the best of my abilities, and then I'm just waiting for that. So essentially, okay, they were in the same job family. Okay, so it's perfectly fine to, do you have if you have the email or contact information of the person that contacted you about the specific position, you're definitely more than welcome to email them and just ask like, hey, super excited about my interview coming up on this specific date. Do you mind sending me, trying to think here. Any other career counselors, if you have come across this question, y'all are more than welcome to chime in and let me know kind of what you guys think. Because I'm thinking that you should be able to just ask, I'm very excited about this interview. I applied to several positions. I just wanted to see which position which position this interview was for. Or if you have their hiring manager who's interviewing you, you're more than welcome to look up on their LinkedIn and kind of see what team and go from there. But I know there's other career counselors in here, so I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
This is Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
I think I'm probably not the one that you were talking about, but yeah, I think that sounds like a reasonable request. And even if it was just like, I've really been looking in this company for a while, there's been a few positions that I was interested in applying for. I just wanted to confirm which one it is. But I think you also have a great point. Like if you can look at who the hiring manager is and what team it's with, that might give you a clue as well. So yeah, it sounds like I don't have a different suggestion than those.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And you were one of the people I was talking about. I was like, Jamie's in here. Yeah, do you guys have any other questions, or did you have a follow-up question to that? And again, you can just unmute and talk, or you're more than welcome to go into the chat.
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay. I'm guessing the same would apply even if the position were on the same job family. Okay, so let's see. So for the first one, the follow-up question, I think it would apply if it was for the same job family. Only thing is like, especially if it's for the same job family, I think it's perfectly fine. I think seeing who the hiring manager is might be a little bit more helpful if it wasn't in the same job family. That way, again, because typically your questions are going to be about the same if it's the same job family. It says, how soon, and then there's another question in here that says, how soon after an interview should I send a thank you letter? within 24 hours. Again, you want to make sure, 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours. Again, people are consistently having interviews. So in order to be memorable, the sooner the better. Thank them for their time. Usually within 24 hours is what I suggest. You're welcome. All right. Are there any other questions for today? Okay, what are other ways we can prepare for an interview? So definitely have a printout of questions, but practice makes perfect. The first time that you're answering certain questions should not necessarily be in front of the interviewer. They should be something that you've practiced with your friends or your family and someone who can give you honest feedback. And also you're able to schedule a mock interview with career counselors so that you guys can, that way, again, that practice piece, and you can get feedback, and you can also kind of get tips and tricks on how to strengthen like a specific answer for a specific position. And so, yeah. And you're able to do that going into a Coog pathway and selecting either virtual or phone. And you're still able to do those mock interviews. And again, your first interview is most likely going to be a phone screen. And also video interviews are very common now, especially if you're applying outside of Texas and things like that. So make sure that you get all of that practice in during a phone and virtual interview as well. All right, any other questions for me, guys? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and, let's see. How would you suggest about asking for relocation assistance? Okay, so with that comes into the negotiation piece, and we actually have a specific session specifically on that, on negotiations and different things that you can negotiate. So depending on the job posting itself, whether they've talked about it, whether the job posting says that they offer relocation assistance or don't offer relocation assistance, it's always good that's something that's to ask. Usually this is the question that I feel like might be better answered by a different career counselor, and I can give you her contact information because I think she would be better able to assist you with that specific question. Let me send that to you. And so I'm going to go ahead and before I close down this session, I'm going to go ahead and share my email. If you have any specific questions, or if I wasn't able to answer your question and you still have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to email me, because if I don't know the answer, I guarantee you we have a career counselor who does, and I would be glad to connect you to them so that you guys can continue to get all of like the information. Oh yes, thanks, Jamie. And also there's interview preparation worksheet available for you guys in that specific link. So please, again, do not hesitate to email myself or any other career counselor. Please use our resources. Continue to look at social media for updates on upcoming workshops and virtual chat with us. And you're absolutely welcome.